Welcome back to the Team of One podcast. I'm Moe Choice, and in this episode, I spoke to Tom Schin about three things: transitioning from the corporate sector, the importance of support systems, and the mindset required to navigate early struggles. Tom also outlines his future aspirations, including speaking engagements, writing a book, and encourages others to pursue their dreams too. I hope you enjoy the conversation. Peace. Welcome to the Team of One podcast. Today we are joined by Tom Schin. Tom, who are you?
Well, Mo, thanks for having me, first of all. I am the owner of a company called Build Better Culture. It is not this big grandiose thing. It's just me and my smiling face. I help do a bunch of different things, but I've spent a good chunk of my years leading and managing teams. And so I thought I'd put all the practical experience to other people's benefit. People struggle with things. I've had the benefit of having some really good mentors and people help me along the way. And I'm on a mission to share that knowledge and help people make their lives a little happier every day.
Amazing. Thanks for being here, by the way. I appreciate it. Do you identify as a solopreneur?
Absolutely. Me, myself, and Irene, if we want to go movie titles.
And if someone said to you, what is a solopreneur? How would you define that?
A one-stop shop. Like, you are it. You are the one person who's servicing, delivering, fulfilling, selling. It's not that you can't have people helping and referring and supporting you on outside exceptions, but you handle everything. The buck stops here. There's no employees. You're off on your own, and you're making dreams happen.
I love it. A guest on the show, I don't want to say who it is because I can't remember for sure. I don't want to get the wrong person. Sorry. I think it was Melissa. She said, you could work with others, but they don't care about the goal. It's your goal. And the others are just doing what they need to do that you've asked them for, but they have no interest in where you're going and what you're taking. I think that's a really good way of thinking about solopreneur.
Right. And I think there's some salt and pepper to add to that, just in terms of, it's not that they don't care because they're helping you out, but theirs is really to help you out versus help your client out.
Yeah. In my world, I call that they don't care about your goal. But yeah, no, I take your point completely. Why? I mean, you mentioned a little bit in the intro about some of the drive for what you're doing, but why solopreneur? Why did you decide this is the best way for me?
I don't think my journey is that different than many others. I started with big, giant, international work experience, meaning the company that I started my career out with when I got out of college, thousands of employees around the world. I didn't get to go around the world, don't get me wrong, but every stop I've made along the way has gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. And while I loved leading teams, I got to the point where I decided I don't want to go back to W-2 world. I don't want to be somebody's employee. I want to be held to my own. And this is contrary to, 6-8 years ago, people are like, you should start your own company. You should do your own thing. I thought this was your company. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. Now, forget it. I don't want to go back. I enjoy this solo path because I can pivot and change, and I don't need to get permission. If I try something and fail, it's on me. If I try something and succeed, I can give that credit to whoever I'm working with and help them along. There is no giant ego. It's just my madness, my change of path and direction based on what makes me happy and what drives me to help others be successful.
Very cool. I used to say, or I still say, solopreneurs on a jet ski, whereas in most companies are an oil tanker or something like that. And so
I wouldn't mind a nice party boat. Then I can invite some people along once in a while, but then I can also kick them off.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe I'll have 5 jet skis, and so people can come and jet ski with me.
We actually drove by, my wife and I and some friends. We were on our way to a restaurant by a lake, and there was this little pontoon, and swear to God, the size of it could hold 3 people. I'm like, I don't understand the point of this. Do you like hook on to another pontoon so you can be part of the party? Like,
I think so.
why have a boat so small? Because it was tall, because pontoons are tall, but it just seemed like wasted space.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it's a pontoon chain they're supposed to be creating.
That would be really
Um,
fun.
uh, Early days. When do you remember when you first became a solopreneur? The day or the time?
Yeah.
And can you talk me through what that experience was like?
So there are two parts to it. I started my side quest as a side hustle. I wasn't really sure back around 18, 19 if me starting this venture was going to be the next phase of my career or just a complementary piece. And people would ask me that question all the time. I'm like, I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have, I haven't I think at one point I had a magic 8 ball and you could shake it and ask, and it'll say, it depends. But the true trigger point, I had been in recruiting for almost 20 years and I got caught in a reduction. And so at that point, because I had everything laid out, I had the LLC, I had a small mixture of clients. There was a framework already built, and my youngest was in his senior year of college or entering his senior year of college. So it was one of those, pardon my blank or get off the pot moments. If you're going to do it, it's now. And so my wife was very supportive. Go for it. Right? You've got the energy. You can do this. And I had lots of support from friends. It was amazing when that happened. People found out. I had a gajillion number of people reach out. Hey, let me know if you need help finding a next thing. I'm like, no. I have the next thing. This is it. This is what it's going to be. And I will shape it and shift it and make it what it needs to be because there's this need. And everybody that I talk to agrees with it, that managers need more support. And I want to give that to them.
Great. Biggest struggle early on?
I think as I think about it now, hindsight being 2020, we're a couple of years past that I call it a push off the ledge or the pushing off the bungee jump bridge. There wasn't anyone to catch me. And it was really upon me to drive the ship and make some decisions. Think that I knew what I was after, because what I learned along the way was that my messaging wasn't consistent. It wasn't clear to the buyer. And it took a little while to get there. And so that was a big struggle. Year one was tough. Just the knocking the ego, not closing things, not having the revenue come in like you thought it was. I like I said, I spent a lot of time in the TA world as a third party business working for different folks, and I had a lot of great success there. I had success in my publishing career before that. So to hit this big giant wall or speed bump, if you will, it was a sock in the stomach. And it took a little bit to kind of get my mind right. And once I got myself realigned, I always had the confidence that I'm on a path. It's going to take me a little bit to get out of this, but I'll get there. And now I'm on that right track and things are, heads and tails different. My mindset has gotten better and better about it. But people don't realize when you go down this solopreneur world, what struggles people go through. It's bumpy. Not everybody has this magic wand thing. So I would say that first year struggle of figuring out, how do I run this as my 9 to 5, not my supplementary? How do I make sure I've got all my ducks in a row, my plan, my strategy, working on the business as well as in the business, and do it well without second guessing yourself to death?
And it makes sense because you started it as your side hustle. So you actually have to shift your thinking and your approach when it becomes your full hustle.
Mm-hmm. I
And
didn't need as a side hustle, you didn't need the revenue.
yeah, right.
It was as it comes along because I had a
Yeah.
full-time W-2
Yeah,
and I
right.
loved it. We had a great time.
Mm.
As I look now, it was all lessons in time. Everything is, I don't tend to look back and have all these regrets about this and that and the other. That's a lesson. I learned from it. I learned a good lesson. I learned a bad lesson. I learned what to do, what not to do, helped shape things. Everything that we've done is a chapter in the book, and I can't rewrite the book. So why dwell on that? And so now, as we think about that transition from W-2 plus side hustle to full-time, it's a big shift. And I've talked to a number of other folks and they battle that struggle too, but I try to help them along and tell them, here's some shortcuts. Let me save you 3 months of pain. Use this, use this, use this sort of strategy. And we all try and help each other out that way.
Very cool. What was do you remember the turning point that made you believe you made the right decision and you're on the right track?
The two questions. The one about did I make the right decision? There was never a second thought about that.
Ever?
I knew the moment, no, never. I knew this is the path that I'm on. Succeed or fail, I'm on this path. And granted, there's a bit of ego and overconfidence in there, I'm sure. My head's this big, but my ego's even bigger. The second part of your question, reframe it for me, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, let's stick to the path bit.
Yeah.
When you say never a doubt about the path, how do you define path in this instance? Is it macro or micro?
So I would look at it as I knew I was going to make this business successful. The timeline piece of it being successful was not something that was realistic to me. I would set goals and not hit them. I would set further goals and not hit them as far as client calls and clients booked and so on and so forth. That was the biggest struggle for me, is not getting people to turn into clients when I thought they were ready. And so the path of being in this direction and helping people with leadership development and coaching and so forth, I knew this was a viable solution.
Got it.
I just didn't anticipate it taking so long to stick.
Got it. The reason I asked that is I am and always will be sure that the path of solopreneurship is mine, and I'll figure out a way. But I'm always doubting what I'm doing. So it's different with you. It's a different lens on it, because you're sure of what you're doing. I'm never sure about what I'm doing, but I'm sure I'm going to be a solopreneur. That's
right.
what I'm sure.
There are micro doubts that you have along the way. Those just moments of, should I? Yeah. Quiet that noise. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. This is what you're meant to be doing.
Right.
I have a lot of validation behind it. I have a lot of supporters that, give me props and so on and so forth. And of course, my family supports me on this, and they get excited when I say, hey, I closed this deal. And they're like, good job.
Yeah.
Because from working for yourself, there isn't anybody to give you a high five.
No.
When something really good happens, there's generally nobody home. So I end up, I haven't gone to do this and give myself a pat on the back, but I have done the high five to myself, the self five from How I Met Your Mother. And once in a while I'll text somebody. I'm like, I just need to let it out, because my family, while in an emergency, I can get a hold of them, but they're not working. So I can't interrupt them in their day.
One of the things I think, one of the reasons I'm good with this path is I don't know if I don't need it, but I never expect praise. I think just the way my parents were, particularly my mom. It was like the praise was there for the things that weren't to do with achievement. It was more there to do with how I was behaving. Whereas, and I rebelled against that big time. But achievement for me was always, I need to do more. And so I, as you were talking there, I'm like, I think that's benefited me, that I don't need, as a solopreneur, that I don't need praise. Right. And actually, even as I'm talking to you, I kind of cringe when people praise me. I don't know why. It must be something from my childhood or something. It must be.
It's like when somebody gives you a compliment and you're like, no.
Yeah.
All that you really need to do is just say thank you. They're trying to be kind to you and share this moment of, hey, that really matters, or that's a really cool thing. And so I've learned over time to take the thank you. And if it's something I'm really proud of, then I'll own it, and we'll embellish a little bit into that storyline about how it crafted, because you get jazzed and excited about things. I like to tell stories and talk, sometimes too much, probably more than sometimes. But we all need a little bit of that outlet. And I think it's just exactly that. It's an outlet. When the really exciting things would happen, like if I got a speaking gig or a client that was something I was really after and spent a lot of time and energy on, you just sort of needed to give that fist bump or like, yeah. Or if you're at the gym and you lifted something really heavy or did something really phenomenal that you hadn't done in the past, you're just super jazzed and pumped about it. And just every so often, you just need somebody to jam out with. And sometimes it's yourself. And so you turn on some Beastie Boys and jam out for 6 minutes.
Yeah, maybe. I need to think about this a lot. I think part of I just have a distrust for people. I just think you're just saying that. I just have a deep distrust for people. I always did, I think, since I was a kid. I'm like, you don't mean that bullshit. So maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But I think where I want to pick this up, and then we'll talk about next level. You talked about setting goals and not hitting them.
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak a bit more about that? Because that's when we lost the track.
Yeah.
Tell me more about setting goals and not hitting them, and why that was an important statement for you to make.
It's ironic. When I was in high school and college, I never wanted to get into sales. Turns out sales was my thing. I was able to build really strong relationships. I wasn't a transactional salesperson. There are some that do that really, really well. I was a relational salesperson. So in my publishing days, I was an exceptional salesperson. I was able to form relationships and provide solutions. That consultative sales approach that, we put in air quotes. Really, it's you're listening to what your customer wants and needs and not shove things down their throat that they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did really well at that. When I got into the staffing world, I did really well at that. I understood the pains. I used staffing services in my previous life. And so I understood what people were going through. And so that sales piece really gave me the platform and foundation to know that I needed to do certain activities in addition to fulfilling needs, meaning I needed to call people, I needed to email people. But now, as the solopreneur, I need to market myself. I need to create content. I need to create deliverable material. I need to make sure I'm monitoring the money going out. And at that point, the lack of money coming in, right? And so all these pieces mixed in. And when I talk about the struggle with the goals, it was mapping out at the start of the year. All right, if I have this many clients and I'm billing them each, let's just say $1,000 each, then this is how many clients I need to have a successful year. And if I do this, the first few months will take a little bit, but by the time I get to March, I should have X. And I didn't. Because I'm like, okay, well, I can pivot, I can make do, and we're still okay. There's still money in the bank and so forth. Let me revise those and revise, the estimated delivery of, client acquisition just kept getting further and further out. And once in a while, you'd get a small bone. You're like, all right, I'm on the right path. And then the balloon would pop again. And so those moments of frustration, and it just sort of makes you second guess in the moment your abilities. I always knew I was capable of, but the delivery part of it as a solopreneur was just so much different. You didn't have a support network right there to kind of steer you back on track. And so there is a bit of self-doubt. We all face that. And I always knew I was on the right course, but there's always the creep of maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I'm approaching this wrong. Other people are doing it well, and geez, maybe I can learn from them. And so you just spend your time learning and adjusting and pivoting, and it eats away at you on one side, but the other side, it's motivating to push your goal mindset. My sales goal mindset was always there. If I put in the activity and I put in the work, the results would come. And so as I got into 2025, the end of 24 was bleak. There wasn't anything in the pipeline. And all of a sudden, January 2nd hits. Boom, 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 boom. All this stuff just starts falling in place. The activities and behaviors that I've been doing all of 2024 led to results that were starting to hit in January of 25. And so the start of the year just set my mood. I'm like, okay, all this pain, all this frustration, while I knew I was on the right course and there was never a doubt about that, now the results were speaking and people were asking for more.
Very cool. So you've gotten to a place now where you might be looking at the next level, right? What is that?
At this juncture, I got a couple of irons in the fire. One is to get more on the speaking circuit. While I don't fancy myself the bee's knees of public speakers and keynotes, I do have things I can share and motivation that I can spread. And so that's part of the longer term goal. Yes, it's a funnel feeder, but I enjoy it. When I have a room of 100 people or 200 people, the energy, enthusiasm, and the aha moments. To me, I did a session not that long ago, and people wanted to come take their picture with me afterwards. And my wife was in the room, and she's like, what's going on here? Because she had never seen me speak before. And I'm like, somebody wants to take their picture. Great. I'll let them take my picture. There's nothing special here about me. But it was really strange for me that people wanted to come up and take a picture with me in front of my slide or the projector or whatever. And so that sort of hit me as I'm doing the right things. The message that I'm giving is clear. It's on point. It's something they can take action on. And so that it really drives home the point of the speaking side of it is part of the next level up. Having 4 or 5 of those higher paid speaking opportunities really lends itself to a bigger stage, more robust client opportunities, reaching people who have the struggle but just don't know that there's the right support for their type of personality. I am not everybody's leadership coach. I am not for the C-suite of IBM per se, right? I'm wearing a quarter pull-up zip on this. I can wear a tie. I rock a bow tie. I don't like wearing them. They're uncomfortable. They feel like I'm strangling. So I fit certain people and I want to be able to help them out.
And so the speaking circuit is what's going to take you to the next level. That's what you're saying.
I think so. Yeah.
And how?
Yeah.
What's the strategy? How are you going to tackle that?
Right. So I've built a pretty deep list. I had some help with some starters and I started building off of that. So I'm of the mind there are no new ideas. It's all recreations or modifications off of others. So some people shared, hey, what about these? And so I take those lists, figure out who the point of contacts are, what the calendar is for those keynote opportunities, those paid speaking opportunities. And that's just in one vertical. Timelining out 8 months out from those events, because I know speaking opportunities are at least 6 months, if not 8 or 12 months ahead of time as far as being lined up and confirmed and locked in. And so it's building that stream. And now I'm calendarizing all of it so that I've got, I think the list, I have probably 25 on the short list right now. And it's mapping out, making the calls, making the outreach, getting on the email list. So that way, when these call for speakers comes out, I'm there. I have the content. I have the pitch, the 2 or 3 of them, because you want to have some different storylines. And for me, I typically like to know what the theme of the conference or the session is about ahead of time. But now I'm seeing it doesn't necessarily need to be that way. So many of the speakers that I've run into have 4 or 5 key messages and they just spin it to whatever the conference is.
Very cool. And what happens if you get this right? What happens after that?
Then I'm traveling to nice cities that have warm weather. Hopefully somebody has a conference in Orlando so I can visit Disney World, and a couple of other cool cities. I think if this goes right, then I've got a half dozen nice paid speaking gigs. And I'm not saying earth changing, but that half dozen in 26 turns into a dozen in 27 or more. And it opens up the opportunity for me to do more workshops, help clients out in other parts of the country that I just don't have access to. I don't have the reach yet because people don't know about me.
And then what if it doesn't work?
And I keep going at it. Fortunately, because of all that sales experience, I'm used to no. So it's pivot, figure out what didn't go right, what didn't strike. Was it just that somebody else's message was better? Great. Let me figure out how to tweak that and make that message a little bit more succinct and a little bit more on point, but it's keep at it. Until I've reached, 3 years of that no, there's no reason to stop that. There's a persistence, there's an engine. And I think that's the solopreneur piece. You have to keep going and modifying. And, there's lots of other mini projects along the way. And that's the other downside of being the solopreneur. You probably have it as well. And I'm sure you've talked to a bunch where it's idea. Oh, I could do all these things. I got to stay in your 80-20.
So just to be clear, because this is what people find interesting about what we're going to do, because it's easy to talk about what we've done because that's true, whereas what we're going to do is often we don't know. You would spend 3 years, even with a bunch of no's, trying to get the speaking gig.
Yeah,
right. That's what you would
absolutely.
do.
I would
Yeah.
absolutely do that.
And when you talk about side projects, can you give me an example of a side project in your space now that you are considering or that you're
Yep.
struggling to
So I'm
ignore?
about 300 words into a book. 300 isn't a lot. There's a fellow, John Bernatovich, was talking about this, and I've had a couple of other people in my ear, like, you should write a book. I'm like, I can't write a book. They're like, you can write a book. All the leadership workshops that I do, they're all chapters, and there's stories to all of them that I bring into all the workshops. And so that's the starting point, coming up with a few chapters, put it in front of some people to get some feedback, and then eventually have enough to put in front of a publisher, whether it's self-publishing or elsewise. There's a method to that. I think that part also helps on the speaker trail. I've seen a lot of folks, noted author and keynote speaker, versus here's Tom. And again, I don't think the book is necessarily a revenue engine. It's a feeder into that speaking and workshop world.
$20 business card. That's what a book is.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thanks for sharing all of that. We started about talking about your career and how you worked for big companies, global companies, and how you ended up with smaller companies as you got older, until you ended up on your own, and how you knew that this was your calling. You started it with a side hustle, a very common thing. You loved leading teams, you loved the leadership world, and then you ended up becoming a solopreneur, and you loved that path, and you knew that this was for you, not just in terms of what you were doing, but also how you were doing it. And that being able to take control and own everything and do it your way really spoke to you. Again, very common draw to being a solopreneur. We also talked about the downsides of that, which is no one's giving you a high five, or maybe people aren't there to support you when you need it. So there's no perfect world, let's say. So I think you summed that up really well. And then you talked about having the support from your wife and your friends, which I think is super important. There's a lot of people that don't have the encouragement maybe from their loved ones. They have more cynicism and skepticism. And I think that's not a good way to start, unless you're completely you know what I mean?
I have one friend, I think he honestly believes I sit at home and twiddle my thumbs because he knows what my wife does. He sees me, like, the beauty of being the solopreneur is I can go to the gym whenever I want. And so once in a while, I'll go in the middle of the day because I have a clear calendar. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this now and I'll catch up on other stuff later. And I'll get sort of, and it's just one of those funny moments. I'm like, is he joking? Or does he not realize I live in this other world of doing things? And so I don't want to correct him because it's just funny to me. And I think he's probably kidding. But it always, every so often, he'll say something. I'm like, no, this is a job. People pay me to do stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's difficult to explain if there's no role or a clear company. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We then talked about, in hindsight, that you could have thought or planned a little bit better about how to turn this into a proper 9-to-5 business. And obviously that pivot between a side hustle where the revenue isn't that important to now it's the most important thing actually to keep going. But you were never in doubt of the path, and you had lots of validation in the results you were getting. And we talked about setting goals and not hitting them, and realizing how you had sales power that you might not have realized before, and how you were able to cultivate relationships. But even though it was a struggle, all the hustle you put in 2024, it started to pay off early 2025, and you started to see the fruits of your labor, let's say. And now that you've made this big breakthrough, it's now about launching yourself into the speaking circuit world and being able to travel more and get more workshops and get more exposure and maybe finish your book. And and you're going to keep going with that until you figure out how it works, and you're determined to see how it works. 3 years you've given yourself, which is awesome. Is there anything, as you heard me reflect back, anything that you want to close with, anything that you want to say about any of that, or anything that you forgot to add that you think might be important?
I think you captured the storyline pretty well. I think I look at that career path much like a sales funnel. Everything kind of narrows down to a center point, and here I am at the bottom of the funnel, and now it's just output. And I think the thing that I would say to add to all of that is to hopefully inspire folks that if you've got a dream, get the right support structures in place. Right? You can't think that you can do everything yourself. It's not realistic. And honestly, I listen to a lot of audiobooks and get a lot of tips, and putting yourself in your zone of genius where you can do exceptional stuff and the things that you love is the most important thing for a solopreneur. I can waste my time on doing things I don't like, or I can farm some of that out or decide that's not really critical to my growth. And being aware of what I'm really good at and what I'm not, and where I need to farm stuff out or pay somebody to do, or just decide that it doesn't fit with the bigger picture is really important. I have to remind myself of that stuff regularly, where I just get drawn down rabbit holes. And I'm sure that's a lot of solopreneurs. So just remind yourself of those gut checks to almost do periodic SOAR or SWOT analysis of yourself and how you're performing.
Very wise words. Tom Schin, where can people find you?
I'm all over LinkedIn. I mean, the best place to find me is buildbetterculture.com. That's my website. I put a lot of content. I have media samples from video and podcasts and speaking engagements and so forth, resources that I give to people as I have friends that reach out like, what would you do in this scenario? I'm like, first I say, write me a check. And then they laugh. I'm like, okay, here's your free download. Here's a worksheet for things like effective one-on-ones and so forth. I have all sorts of different tools I like to share, but buildbetterculture.com is the best place. LinkedIn is the second most. I post stuff there nonstop. I don't want to say what I call myself because it's not appropriate for the airwaves, but I'm all over LinkedIn. So if you want to find me there, please connect, reach out, send me a message, and I'll be happy to chat with you about challenges, struggles, validation, etc.
Very cool. And we'll put all that information in the session notes. Tom, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate you having me on, Mo. One last piece of, if you don't mind me sharing, the other place to catch me is on the airwaves. I know you and I talked and met across for this show. This meeting should have been a podcast, just started, and so we're creating madness too.
Amazing. Yeah, check out Tom's podcast and connect with him on LinkedIn and check out his website. And I'm sure I'll see you around, Tom Schin.
Mo, thanks for having me. I appreciate you sharing my story.
All right. The difference between surviving and thriving often comes down to a single shift in perspective. Maybe today's conversation sparked something for you, or maybe it confirmed what you already knew. I'm going to keep exploring what it takes to reach the next level. For more solopreneur stories, hit subscribe. And if you know someone who'd be perfect for the team of one, please introduce us on LinkedIn. See you next time. Peace.